You were on your knees, praying, crying, begging God to make this relationship work. You fasted for it. You wrote their name in your prayer journal. You told God, "This is the one. Please, Lord, do not let this fall apart." And God said no. And now you're sitting somewhere, maybe right now, watching this video, with a quiet kind of pain that you have not been able to explain to anyone. Not because the wound is fresh, but because it still has not fully healed. Because you're still carrying questions. Was there something wrong with me? Did I miss something? Why did God let it start if He was just going to let it end? I want you to stop right there. Because what I'm about to share with you is going to completely change the way you see every relationship that did not work out in your life. Every person who left. Every prayer that was not answered the way you hoped. Every connection that felt real and then disappeared. By the time this video is over, you're not going to see any of those things as losses anymore. You're going to see them for exactly what they were, protection. And not the distant, cold kind of protection. The kind where God just closes a door and walks away. I'm talking about the fierce, intentional, deeply personal protection of a father who loves you so much that he would rather break your heart today than watch it be destroyed tomorrow. A father who sees around corners you cannot see around. A father who knows not just who you are right now, but who He created you to become, and who will fiercely guard the path that leads you there, even if that means saying no to the very thing you are begging Him to say yes to. Stay with me. Because there are 4 signs I'm going to walk you through today. 4 very specific signs that God is protecting you from a bad relationship. And I need you to watch this to the very end. Because the 4th one, especially, is the one that nobody talks about. The 4th one is the one that will hit you the deepest. The 4th one might be the thing you have been waiting to hear for a long, long time. Let us begin. The first sign. When someone reveals their ugly character early in the relationship and then leaves you, that is not heartbreak. That is God's hand pulling you out of a burning building before the smoke could reach you. I want you to think back. Think back to when it started, because it always starts the same way, does it not? You met this person and something about the encounter felt different. There was something in the way the conversation flowed that made you feel like you had known them for years. Something in the way they looked at you. Something in the way they made you feel seen and understood. Something that made your heart say, quietly, almost afraid to admit it, this could be something real. Maybe it was a direct introduction. Maybe it was through a mutual friend. Maybe it was completely unexpected. A chance encounter that did not feel like chance at all. And in those early moments, this person was everything. They were thoughtful. They were engaging. They asked questions and actually listened to the answers. They showed up consistently. They made you believe that maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of the thing you had been praying for, and you started to invest. Not just emotionally, spiritually. You brought this person before God. You started asking for clarity, for confirmation, for direction. You started to imagine a future that included them, and everything inside you wanted it to be real. And then it happened. Something small, maybe. A moment of conflict or frustration. A disagreement that should have been minor. And out of that small moment came something you were not prepared for. A side of this person you had never seen. A harshness, a coldness, a cruelty that seemed completely disconnected from the person you thought you were getting to know, and before you could even process what happened, they were gone, angry, distant, cut off. As if everything that had been built between you meant nothing to them. And you were left in silence, replaying everything, wondering what you did wrong, wondering if you had said the wrong thing, been too much, pushed too hard, expected too much. The self-questioning that comes from that kind of sudden disappearance is one of the cruelest forms of emotional pain because you do not just lose the person, you start to lose trust in your own perception of reality. But here is what I need you to hear, and I need you to hear it clearly. That person did not change. They never changed, because they were never who you thought they were in the first place. What you saw in the beginning was a performance. It was the version of themselves they chose to present to you while they were interested in winning your attention. People, when they are trying to attract someone, are almost always on their best behavior. They are more patient than they naturally are. They are more attentive, more generous, more careful with their words. Because they are motivated, they want something, and so they manage their presentation carefully. But character, real character, cannot be managed forever. Under pressure, under stress, in moments of conflict or disappointment, who someone really is will always rise to the surface. It is not a question of if, it is only a question of when. And here is the miracle hiding inside your pain. God made it when He made it early. He made it before you were fully attached, before the relationship was official, before you had built months or years of history with this person. Before they had met your family and become woven into the fabric of your life, before you had made promises or commitments that would have made walking away so much more complicated and so much more costly. Think about the alternative. Think about what it looks like when that character trait does not reveal itself early, when the mask stays on for 2 years, when you fall completely in love with the person you think they are. When you get engaged, when you get married, when you build a life, and then, slowly, the version you fell in love with starts to fade, and the real version starts to emerge. A version that is controlling, or cold, or dishonest, or emotionally unavailable, or cruel in small ways that add up to enormous damage over time. That is not a hypothetical for many people. That is a reality they are living. And the pain of discovering that truth years in, with everything invested, with children involved, with finances and families intertwined, that pain is exponentially greater than what you experienced. You experienced it early. God allowed the revelation before the devastation. That is mercy. That is kindness. That is a father who loved you enough to let something hurt now, so that something far worse could never happen later. And I want to speak to the specific wound of this particular experience, the wound of feeling rejected by someone you cared about, because that wound has a name, and it is shame. There is a quiet voice that says, they saw who you really are, and they left. And that voice is lying to you. They did not leave because of who you are. They left because who they are was incompatible with a real, healthy, godly relationship. Their exit was not a verdict on your value. It was a revelation of their character. Those are two completely different things, and it is important that you know the difference. So if someone showed you something ugly and then walked away, release them. Release them without chasing. Release them without begging. Release them without trying to explain yourself or fix what happened. God closed that door for your protection. Do not stand outside it knocking. There is a better door somewhere ahead. Walk toward it. The second sign. If the people who love you most had concerns about this relationship, and those concerns turned out to be right, that is God speaking through the voices He placed closest to you. This one requires a particular kind of humility to receive. Because the human ego does not like to be wrong. And it especially does not like to be wrong about something as personal and emotional as a relationship. There is a specific sting that comes with hearing someone say, "I told you so," even when they say it gently, even when they say it with love, even when they never actually say the words out loud, but you can feel it in the air between you. But I want to reframe this for you completely, because the way you interpret this experience will determine whether you receive the blessing inside it or miss it entirely. Here is the truth about the people who warned you. The people who loved you enough to risk the awkwardness of that conversation, the parent who sat you down, the friend who said she was worried, the mentor who gently asked you to slow down, those people were not trying to control you. They were not jealous of what you had. They were not projecting their own fears onto your situation. They were doing something that is actually quite costly. They were prioritizing your well-being over their own comfort. Because that conversation is not easy to have. Telling someone you love, "I have concerns about the person you are with," requires courage. It invites defensiveness. It risks the relationship. It opens the door to conflict and distance and resentment. The people who have that conversation anyway, the ones who choose your future over their own peace, those people love you in a specific sacrificial way. And they see something that you cannot see right now. Not because they are smarter, not because they know your situation better than you do, but because they are not inside the emotion of it. You are hoping, you are attached. You want it to be right. And that hope, beautiful and human as it is, has a way of softening the edges of things that should be sharp. It has a way of making red flags look like merely pink flags. It has a way of making excuses for behavior that, in a different context, you would recognize immediately as a problem. The people outside your emotions see the edges that you have softened. They hear the stories you tell them about this person, and they notice the things you glossed over. They see how you look after spending time with this person, whether you're more at peace or more anxious, more yourself or more like you are walking on eggshells. They notice patterns across time. And sometimes the pattern they see is one that your heart is not ready to acknowledge. When God speaks through those voices and those concerns end up being confirmed, when the relationship ends and the very things they warned you about turn out to be the exact things that broke it apart, that is not a coincidence. That is God confirming that what happened was under His supervision, that He was working through the people He placed around you to try to warn you, and even when you did not listen, He still protected you in the end. And there is a beautiful lesson inside this one, beyond just the specific relationship. The lesson is about the value of the community God places around you. He does not just speak to us in solitary moments of prayer. He speaks through pastors and parents and friends and mentors. He speaks through the accumulated wisdom of people who have lived more life than you have and who love you enough to tell you the truth, even when the truth is uncomfortable. If you have people like that in your life, people whose warnings turned out to be right, do not be ashamed that they were right. Be grateful. And the next time they speak, let their track record earn your attention. Because God may be using them again to protect you again. The third sign. If someone was making you believe they were serious about you, and then they disappeared and started dating someone else, that is God protecting you from a relationship that was built on performance rather than truth. I want you to feel the full weight of this particular experience for a moment, because I think it is one of the most disorienting and under-acknowledged forms of relational pain. You were not officially in a relationship. There was no label, no defined commitment. And because of that, the world does not quite give you permission to grieve it the way you grieve a real breakup. People say things like, "But you were not even together," as if the absence of a label means the absence of real feelings, real hope, real investment. But you know what it was like from the inside. You know the conversations that went late into the night. You know the moments that felt like something was being built. You know the way they made you feel special, made you feel chosen, made you feel like it was just a matter of time before this became something official. And you know the specific devastation of watching all of that energy redirect, watching the person who made you feel like you were the one suddenly showing the world that someone else is the one. That pain is real. That confusion is real. And you do not need a label to have permission to feel it. But now I want to walk you through something. I want you to think very carefully about what kind of person does this. What kind of person invests in making you feel chosen while simultaneously keeping other options open? What kind of person allows you to build hope around them while never fully committing to honoring that hope? What kind of person is comfortable creating an emotional reality for you that they have no intention of being accountable to? This is someone who is comfortable with ambiguity when the ambiguity benefits them. This is someone who gives enough to keep you engaged but not enough to be responsible for what that engagement creates in you. This is someone who, when pressed, would probably say, "I never actually promised you anything," and technically they might be right. But maturity and integrity are not measured by technicalities. They are measured by how we treat the hearts of people who are trusting us. And the person who does what this person did to you, the person who creates hope without accountability, that character trait does not disappear when a relationship becomes official. If anything, it gets worse. Because the stakes are higher and the patterns are more established. If you had officially been with this person, what would your relationship have looked like? You would have been with someone who is comfortable managing multiple emotional connections. Someone who knows how to make someone feel special without actually being committed to them. Someone who, when temptation arose or when someone more interesting came along, would have the exact same instinct they showed you, to redirect their attention while managing the fallout in whatever way was most comfortable for them. You would have been in a relationship built on the same performance that drew you in. And performances do not hold. They crack under the weight of real life, real conflict, real intimacy, real vulnerability. And when the performance cracks, what is left is not love. It is confusion and betrayal, and a version of yourself that has been quietly diminished by trusting someone who was never fully trustworthy. God pulled you out of that before the performance could fully begin. He let you see the ending before you had invested enough to make the ending catastrophic. And I know that in the moment it did not feel like grace. I know it felt like rejection. I know there was a part of you that wondered if you were not enough, not interesting enough, not beautiful enough, not something enough to make them choose you and only you. You were enough. You are enough. Their choice to pursue someone else was not a reflection of your worth. It was a reflection of their character. And their character was not ready for what you deserve. The person God is preparing you for will not make you wonder where you stand. They will not keep your heart in a waiting room while they shop for something better. They will see you, want you, choose you, and they will do that clearly, honestly, and without an exit strategy. That is what you are worth. That is what God is protecting you for. Do not settle for the performance when the real thing is still coming. The fourth sign. And I told you this one would be the hardest. I told you this one was the one nobody talks about. Here it is. If you prayed genuinely, sincerely, consistently prayed for a specific relationship, and God said no, and there was nothing obviously wrong with that person, nothing your friends warned you about, no ugly character revealed, no leading on. If God just quietly, clearly closed that door, that is not silence, that is not absence, that is protection of the deepest, most personal kind. Because this fourth sign asks you to trust God not when He is protecting you from something bad, but when He is protecting you from something good that is simply not His best for you. And that requires a level of trust that is genuinely difficult. Because when God protects you from someone who is bad for you, you eventually get to see the evidence. You eventually get to look back and say, now I understand why. Now I can see what I was being saved from. The protection eventually makes sense to your natural mind. But when God closes the door on someone who is good, someone who is kind, who loves God, who would have been faithful, who would have been a good spouse, when God says no to someone that you cannot find a logical reason to say no to, that asks you to trust something you cannot yet see, and that is hard. That is genuinely, honestly hard. I do not want to minimize that. I do not want to offer you a quick spiritual answer that glosses over how difficult it is to accept a no that comes without explanation. There are people watching this right now who prayed for years over a specific person, who fasted, who sought counsel, who submitted the relationship to God with complete sincerity, and God still said no, and you are still processing that. And you deserve more than a 10-second spiritual soundbite in response to that kind of pain. So let me try to give you something real. God's design for your life is not just about making you happy. It is about making you whole, and then using that wholeness for something that is larger than your own story. He placed a specific calling inside of you, a specific assignment. a specific contribution that he intends for you to make to his kingdom and to the people around you. And the person you walk through life with will either accelerate that assignment or quietly complicate it. They will either draw out what God put in you or gradually pull you away from it. And sometimes, not because the other person is bad, not because they are unworthy, but simply because the combination is not right. God knows that this particular pairing would not produce what he designed for both of your lives. It is not a verdict on either of you individually. It is a specific, purposeful decision about the particular combination of the two of you together. Think about chemistry, not emotional chemistry, but scientific chemistry. Two elements can both be completely stable and valuable on their own. But combine them, and you can get something explosive, something unstable, something that does neither of them any good. It is not that either element is bad. It is that they were not designed to combine. God sees that. He sees the chemistry of your combination in ways that your heart simply cannot evaluate in the present moment. And here's what I want you to anchor in when the unanswered prayer feels like silence from heaven. 1 John 5:14 says this, "This is the confidence we have in approaching God, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us." According to his will. Every prayer that aligns with God's will for your life gets answered. Not always the way you asked, not always on your timeline, but it gets answered. And if a specific prayer was not answered the way you hoped, it is because God heard it. He always hears, and he looked at what you were asking for, and he looked at the full picture of your life, and he said, in love, in wisdom, in intimate knowledge of everything you are and everything you are becoming. Not this one. Not because this one is wrong, but because I have something that is specifically right. His no is not an absence of love. His no is love in its highest form, love that is willing to disappoint you today in order to deliver something far greater tomorrow. And his will is not your enemy. His will is not a cage. His will is the safest, most beautiful, most fulfilling place your life could possibly go. It is a map drawn by someone who knows the terrain. It is a plan authored by someone who knows the ending. And when you stop fighting it and start surrendering to it, when you stop asking God to bless your plan and start asking him to show you his, that is when your life starts to look like what it was always designed to look like. Before I close today, I want to speak something directly over you. Not as a content creator wrapping up a video, as someone who genuinely believes in what God is doing in your life, even in this season that has been hard. If someone revealed their true character early and left you, you were not abandoned. You were rescued by a God who saw what was behind the mask and loved you too much to leave you in that deception. If the people who love you had concerns that turned out to be right, you were not foolish. You were surrounded by God-appointed voices that he used to confirm his protection over you. If someone led you on and then chose someone else, you were not second place. You were spared from a relationship built on performance by a God who was preparing you for something built on truth. And if you prayed with everything you had and the answer was no, you were not forgotten. You were redirected by a God who sees your whole life, loves your whole life, and is writing a chapter right now that will make every closed door make sense. I want you to hear this and let it settle into the deepest part of you. The season you are in, the waiting, the healing, the unanswered questions, the quiet evenings where loneliness sits heavy, this season is not empty. It is not wasted. It is not evidence that something is wrong with you or that God has passed you over. This season is preparation. God is building something in you right now that the relationship you wanted could not have produced. He is developing a depth of character in you, a security in your identity, a trust in his faithfulness, a clarity about who you are and what you deserve that you simply would not have if everything you prayed for had been handed to you the moment you asked. The right relationship when it comes, and it is coming. For those of you he has ordained it for, will find a version of you that is ready, rooted, clear, whole, A version of you that knows the difference between what is real and what is performance. A version of you that will not accept being led on because you know your worth. A version of you that trusts God's direction even when your feelings pull in a different direction. That version of you is being built right now, in the waiting, in the healing, in the trusting. Do not rush out of this season in desperation. Do not go looking for something to fill the silence that God is using to speak to you. Do not lower your standards because you are tired of waiting. Stay close to Him. Stay rooted in His Word. Stay in community with people who sharpen you and love you well. He has not forgotten you. He has not passed over you. He is not finished with your story. He is simply and mercifully and lovingly writing it better than you would have written it yourself. Trust Him. The protection you did not ask for is the greatest gift you have ever been given. Hold on to that and hold on to Him.